Edward James Adams was a notorious American criminal and spree killer in the Midwest. He murdered 7 people, including 3 policemen, over a period of around 14 months and wounded at least a dozen others. At age 34, Adams was surrounded and then killed by police in Wichita, Kansas. Edward James Adams was born in 1887 on a farm in Hutchinson, Kansas, as William Joseph Wallace. His father died when he was young and his mother remarried. He had a strong disdain for his stepfather, as well as for physical labor. He learned the barber trade and moved to Wichita in the early 20th century. There he met John Callahan and quickly became involved in bootlegging, petty robberies, and car theft. Adams was handsome and charismatic and attracted many women and hangers-on. His wife left him after growing weary of his illegal activities and infidelities. He soon formed his own gang and began committing bank and train robberies throughout Kansas, Missouri, and Iowa, eventually earning a reputation as the premier bandit in the Midwest by the early days of Prohibition. In 1920, through Callahan, Adams formed a partnership with outlaw brothers Ray and Walter Majors, and on September 5th attempted a daylight robbery against a notorious Kansas City gambling den on Grand Avenue owned by Harry Trustell. However, a shootout between the bandits and tough employees of the illegal casino resulted in the death of gambler and gunman Frank Gardner and the eventual capture of the gang by the police. Adams was sentenced to life imprisonment in February 1921. The Majors brothers received lesser sentences by agreeing to plead guilty to robbery and were both sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. Both brothers eventually died in prison. A third Majors brother involved in the botched robbery attempt, Dudley, escaped from the scene only to be later arrested and serve time in Delaware. While being transported to the Missouri State Penitentiary in Jefferson City, Missouri, Adams escaped custody by jumping off the train and several days later joined Julius Finney in the robbery of a bank and general store in Cullison, Kansas on February 11, 1921. He was captured on February 17, 1921 near Garden Plain, Kansas by a posse after wrecking a stolen car under a bridge. Convicted of bank robbery, Adams was sentenced to serve 10 to 30 years at the Kansas State Penitentiary in Lansing, in addition to his life sentence in Missouri for murder. On August 13th, Adams once again successfully escaped imprisonment after sabotaging the prison power plant and scaling the prison walls during the night, along with inmates Frank Foster, George Weisenberger, and D.C. Brown. The driver of the getaway car was Billy Fintelman, a World War I veteran who had turned to a life of crime. With the exception of Brown, who was recaptured days later, the fugitives eluded capture from state authorities and eventually formed what became the newest incarnation of the Adams Gang.